Hey everyone, Reed here with Big Strong Book, and today I'm going to be talking, maybe begrudgingly, about Turn of the Screw by Henry James. I read this novella over the past couple of days, and I guess before I begin, I want to make it clear that I really enjoy the works that I have most all before Turn of the Screw, all of the works by Henry James that I have read, Washington Square, Portrait of a Lady, and the Aspirin Papers. It's just three, but I really enjoyed all three of those. So two novels and one novella. I expected Turn of the Screw to be, as it is hit probably his most well-known work in terms of, in an average person here knowing of the titles or at least having some familiarity with it, that this would be good. Usually an author's most well-known work, while it may not be their best, it's at least good. It's good enough for a general audience to appreciate it. And I'm just at a loss for words. It was so bad. And, I don't want to just bash it for no reason or to make it seem like I'm bashing it. Again, and this isn't like, I'm not somebody who never reads 19th century literature and so just can't, just has a hard time with the language and the style of it and the narrative structure, and that's far from the truth. I love 19th century literature. I love those kinds of stories, those styles of story, the way that they're told, the language that is used. I love all of that. And I think not that stories from the 19th century are superior to those of today, but there is something within a lot of those classics that is missing from works of today. And people could say that I might be pretentious for thinking that, but I can't put my finger on what's missing, but part of it is probably just a shift in literary movements. Now we're still in the postmodern era. Things from a more, maybe I just have a penchant for, liking romanticism, naturalism in the vein of, Stephen Crane or Emile Zola. But I'm at a loss for words. So the I want to know what drove Henry James to write this. I want to know what was in his mind, what he was thinking. Was this something he wrote very quickly and for money, and it wasn't really an idea that he was in love with, and he just didn't know how to write it, but he was on a deadline, so he had to get it out anyway? Because I can sympathize with that. But, I'm reminded of a line from Joseph Conrad. And I love Joseph Conrad. I've read 4 of Joseph Conrad's works. I've read Narcissus, Heart of Darkness, Nostromo, and Lord Jim, and none of them have missed for me. They're all great. And in I believe to the preface to Narcissus, Joseph Conrad, I think the preface opens with him saying something along the lines of, any work that aspires to the condition of art must carry its justification in every line. And prior to reading A Turn of the Screw, I thought Henry James was on the same wavelength when it came to that philosophy as Joseph Conrad. It's a blob of shit. I don't want to be like the shit sandwich Spinal Tap person here, but I just can't think of it. This book just provoked a revulsion in me, not of the, not of the scary ghost contents of the story. And I should also say that when I'm reading a ghost story or anything that could remotely be considered horror, I don't, me being scared or freaked out or not, that's not one of my prerequisites to getting something out of a horror story. I'll treat a horror story like any other story. I'm there to not only to be entertained, but to learn something, to, learn something more about the human condition. That's what I like to read. And all that I've learned from this is that the man who told this story at that Christmas Eve party, or said he had the manuscript, must have just been pulling a practical joke on all of those people, because the story is crap. Maybe that's the joke. Maybe Turn of the Screw is just a big goose egg and a big joke and a big middle finger to a receptive audience, an audience that wants a ghost story. And so Henry James says, well, screw you, here's not a ghost story. In fact, goes so far, this is just a ghost of a story. There's nothing there. So the characters, the governess, my God, is, it's not like Henry James can't write protagonists or female protagonists well. I just think of A Portrait of a Lady. My God, that novel was vibrant with life and character from the protagonist. I'm blanking on her name right now, but that life was there. In Washington Square, it was there as well, but in here, there's nothing. And I understand that ambiguity is at the heart of Turn of the Screw. And in all of like the structuralist interpretations, or it's said that there's a lot of schools of thought of the Marxist school of criticism, feminist school of criticism, tearing this work to pieces. The thing is, I'm all for deconstructing a story. I'm all for diving into it with various interpretations, because we do get something out of the text. However, maybe I'm too Bloomian in my philosophy here, like Harold Bloom, of wanting something with aesthetic pleasure, because I'm getting none of that with this. I don't mind if in a novel, in the course of a novel, if character development takes a back seat to inventive prose and or philosophical wonderings and questions. I don't mind that. I do mind when nothing is in the novel, really no character development or interesting character development. The characters in here, it's just everybody's all in hysterics the entire time, and there's nothing to grab onto. And the fact that plotting wise, the ending just, it cuts abruptly. I'm not. It doesn't have to go back to outside of the initial frame narrative of that Christmas Eve party or that type of gathering. It doesn't have to go back out to that. But again, no great character development, philosophical wonderings and musings, because everything is so ambiguous as to potentially the nature of the ghosts, what exactly they want, all of that. Because that is left deliberately ambiguous, I'm not able to extract anything of value from it. So any philosophical questions, and then the nature of the prose. I know a lot of people may not like Henry James because of his prose style, but I dig his prose style, that you have to dive into it. But the kind of richness that I can find in novels like Portrait of a Lady is not in here at all. And it's not that Henry James can't do novellas well. You read something like the Aspern Papers, and the Aspern Papers is a beautiful portrait of Venice and this this fan's obsession with, or the scholar, this academic, he's this academic, he's a fan, his obsession with this author and finding more out about him, and it's commentary on art and a little bit on in a weird way on uh learning about an author, the process of creatives, and the life that surrounds the creative figure. There's so much going on in Aspirin Papers, but in here there's nothing. There's absolutely nothing. And I knew that Turn of the Screw was absolutely hit or miss for people. And I figured, having liked all three of Henry James's previous work that I've read, having liked those two novels in Novella, that I would enjoy this. That it's like, okay, it'll be interesting to see not only another Henry James novella, but his take on a ghost story. That's going to be fun. And I'm not saying that all reading should be fun in a roller coaster entertainment type way, but it should be enjoyable, that you're able to get enjoyment out of it. I'm able to get absolutely nothing out of it because, again, no character development, plot development is awful. I could go into spoilers, but I don't think there's anything to spoil because nothing of note happens in this. But again, I'm fine with no character or plot. Real, if a work wants to do that, if it's got interesting and inventive prose, an interesting way of telling a story, but then I compare it to Joseph Conrad. I think of a novel like Lord Jim, for example. Lord Jim is not a horror novel by any means, but Joseph Conrad is at his best when he is diving into the horror almost of the human condition, of the human soul, of these terrible conditions that people find themselves in. And Lord Jim, of the huge chunks of it, if not the whole thing, are multiple frame narratives. And you can do that well. You can pull that off well. So there's nothing inventive about Turn of the Screw. And the ambiguity is so muddled that I don't think you can pull anything interesting out of it. A Marxist criticism, a feminist criticism, any type of school of thought, you're grasping at straws. You're reaching too hard for this because I really don't think there's anything there. And knowing Henry James, knowing what he can do, I just want to say I am glad that this was not the first thing by Henry James that I read. If it was, I don't know if I would have picked up another book by him. I'm just going to be honest. I'm glad that I know a little bit. And I haven't gotten to his master stage of The Golden Bowl, The Ambassadors, and Wings of the Dove. I'm looking forward to working my way up to those books. I think the next big novel of his that's on the horizon for me is The Bostonians, because I want to work my way through the 1880s period of his novels before transitioning to the late 1890s, early 1900s. I hope that Turn of the Screw is not indicative of what his kind of final act of his career, of what that fiction looks like. If it is, please let me know, and let me down easy. If kind of the lack of anything that's within this novel is similar to what Golden Bowl, Ambassadors, Wings of the Dove, if that's what those are like, it'll dampen my spirits a little bit, but I'll definitely be more hesitant towards approaching those works. Or maybe I haven't read enough of Henry James. I don't know. But it's not Henry James. It's necessarily because, again, I know what he is capable of. And he's capable of some pretty good writing and of richness that where you just keep reading the story, because those were the strengths with all three: Washington Square, Portrait of a Lady, Aspirin Papers. I could have read those books in one sit. I read Aspirin Papers in one sitting because it was a novella, but Portrait of a Lady, that's like almost 700, 800 page book. And I could have read the whole thing in one sitting if I wanted to. It was just, you get lost in it. And I never got lost in this at all. And this is the of the books that I have read to completion so far in 2024. This is far and away the worst. Um, and I didn't anticipate saying that, and I didn't anticipate having this such a negative reaction to it. Um, but that's the best I can say. There's just, from my perspective, nothing of substance within this. And I'm not somebody that where you have to tick all the boxes. You just have to tick one or two of them at the very least for me to be on board. But there's none of that in here. So it's a shame. But at least I know that at least this isn't turning me off from ever reading something by Henry James again. Um, but I will be making I know that Turn of the Screw was written in the late 1890s, so I will, for sure, whatever I read by him next, it will be something from probably the 1880s, like the Bostonians. So, with all that nonsense being said, Turn of the Screw, if you have read it, let me know what you think, and potentially let me know what I might have missed within it. I'm not sure it'll change my opinion, but it's always good to hear if there's something that I'm just missing from this. And as always, I will see you guys next time.